Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good championship Sunday right now. 2 minutes, 15 seconds left in the Tampa Bay-Green Bay game. And Aaron Rodgers driving once again, but they'll need a 2-point conversion if they do score just to tie it up. Great game. Hope you were enjoying it. Turn down the sound and listen to us. We have a great show here. AJ, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. And the good news, Mark, I am one shot closer to being able to join you in the studio. Well, I got my first shot of the vaccine this week, so I'm looking forward to that some weeks up. But it looks like we have a great show tonight, and looking forward to talking with our beat guys and listening to you talk to Olden Polynice.
So, just to squelch some of those social media rumors, AJ has just been social distancing and keeping himself in a different studio. He has not been rehearsing for The Masked Singer, so let's just dispel those rumors right off the bat.
No, it's actually The Masked Dancer.
We were thinking that too, but wow, that's a visual I did not need. All right, it's time now for the Major League Baseball Report with John Carpenter. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs and has been featured on HBO's Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Scott personally works with each customer to ensure they understand the authenticity of each item. Every piece of autographed memorabilia is purchased directly from the source. Cardboard Memories also specializes in custom framing, appraisals, and authentication, and they always are buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike in Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at cardboardmemories.com. So, Johnny, first off, a very tough week for baseball. Loses two really greats and a third, if you count Larry King, who did do some baseball early on in his career, Don Sutton and Henry Aaron. Henry Aaron is just such a huge loss, just a history. Tell us what went through your mind when you heard of the passing of Henry.
It's funny because we all tend to kind of talk about somebody after they pass in the most glowing of terms. I was actually having a conversation about Henry Aaron a week before he died and was telling a friend of mine, I think he's the most underrated superstar that we have in baseball. Not because he's not recognized for being great, but I think he gets recognized for one thing, the 755 home runs, breaking Babe Ruth's record, which is a phenomenal feat. But I think what people forget is that he was a 300 hitter. He had more singles than Wade Boggs. He had more stolen bases than Pee Wee Reese. He was an excellent defensive player. He was a complete baseball player, one of the best that baseball's ever had. And also the way he's conducted himself on and off the field. Henry Aaron deserves to be on any Mount Rushmore of baseball that you can put together.
When I think about Henry Aaron, John, I think not just about having seen him play on television and things like that in the peak of his career, but really what he did afterward, what type of an ambassador he was for baseball, what a voice he was for everything that was right, that needs to be done, being the conscience of the commissioner's office on a lot of things. And you look at what he, not just on the field, but off the field, an entire lifetime worth remembering and extolling for what he did for baseball.
Absolutely, and right up until the end too. I mean, he got his COVID-19 vaccine to convince the African American community that it was safe. So right up until the end, he was an ambassador for the game and an ambassador for humanity.
It's also amazing that if you subtract his 755 home runs, he still has 3,000 hits, which is just remarkable as well. All right, so the other news is after Springer signs with Toronto. And it's interesting, too, because with the exchange rate, I don't know how much of a better deal it was than what the Mets were offering, but where did the Mets pivot at this point and losing out on Springer?
It's a great question. I thought Springer was the best fit for the Mets going forward. I think that would have almost completed their offseason, and it would have put them right up on a level with Atlanta, as I've been saying. But right now, I think you still have to think about a defensive-minded center fielder and a reliever. Right now the rumor is that Brad Hand is ready to sign somewhere, and it could be down to the Mets and the Blue Jays for his services. But I also think you think about a center fielder who can hit a little bit, who doesn't have to be in a straight platoon with Brandon Nimmo. Maybe even I lean towards Albert Almora Jr. because he could hit a little bit. He's a little younger than Jackie Bradley Jr., and he's an excellent fielder. I would go that route. There's many other routes that you can go in, but I think the Mets have to think about the Almora option.
The other story of the week broke today, and that was the Yankees in the pitching rotation, getting Jameson Taillon from the Pirates. Does this seal the rotation? Do you think they can compete? There's still too many questions, even with him in the rotation.
Well, there are a lot of questions. I think the Jameson Taillon acquisition is really interesting because this is a guy who has immense talent, and if he could stay healthy, he really adds something to the Yankees rotation. But let's remember he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries, including one very recently. And the Yankees did give up a good amount for somebody who had 2 TJ surgeries. So I'm really intrigued to see what he does in the rotation. This could be the very definition of high risk, high reward.
Absolutely. All right, John, thanks so much. John Coppinger, heard here each and every week over Sports Talk New York. We're going to take a quick break on the other side of it. 15-year NBA vet, Olden Polynice. So keep it tuned right here.
DeFrisco LLP is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line of duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line of duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Minute 56 left in the Tampa Bay Green Bay game. An absolute great game. 2 great quarterbacks, legends going head to head. Like I said, keep the volume down and keep watching it, but keep it tuned right here. Joining us now is a man who forged a 15-year NBA career with some of the top teams of the 90s, including the Seattle Supersonics, Detroit Pistons, Utah Jazz, which included over 1,000 regular season games, 37 playoff games. In his 15 NBA seasons, he averaged 23.5 minutes, 7.8 points, and 6.7 rebounds per game. It is a pleasure to welcome the pride of All Hallows High School in the South Bronx, the one and only Olden Polynice. Welcome, Olden. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Anytime we can speak basketball with you, we're doing great. Your story for me is fascinating, as your journey to the NBA is not the prototypical one. In fact, long before you came to the United States or picked up a basketball, you spent your childhood in Haiti essentially immobile, unable to walk. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to overcome that?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're familiar with Haiti and its medical system. It's not the best in the world. So and again, this stuff my parents have told me and some of the things I remember as I got older. But I was born with my feet turned inwards, and which I guess is called club foot now, or club feet. So I had to, they had to reset my feet and put me in a cast. So I was in a cast for 2 years. And, walking was like my number one goal, let alone, playing, basketball or any kind of sport. So it was a tough road. Like I said, we didn't have the best medical system. I still remember my dad and mom rubbing oil on my legs to massage them as I got older. And it's one of those situations, it is what it is. I mean, that's the cards I was dealt, and I made the most of it. But it's for me to end up playing professional basketball, it's so far-fetched.
Yeah, it's amazing. You and your family immigrated to the United States when you're 7. You grew up in the Harlem section of New York City. We mentioned you attended All Hallows High School in the South Bronx. What do you remember about your adjustment to life in the United States as a 7-year-old? And if I'm correct, you pretty much learned how to speak English from watching Sesame Street and the Electric Company.
Yes, I did. When we first got to the U.S., my number one memory is finding out the bathroom was indoors. that was like the best, because I was like, we don't have to go outside anymore. And so it's little things like that Americans take for granted that I thought was like amazing. Having, food to eat on a regular basis. It's just, it's these little things. And so that's why I value it so much. But, coming to the U.S. and having to not assimilate, but, learn the language. And I find out pretty much kids, no matter what country, they all evil. I thought it was bad in Haiti. They're just as bad in the U.S. when I got here. They made fun of the way I talk because I had that rough accent back then. And one of the things that I regretted so much when I was a kid is they made me feel so bad. At one point, I stopped saying I was from Haiti. I started saying I was from anywhere else but Haiti because of all the evil that they were spewing and everything else. And then my parents had to check me, like, hold up now, we're from Haiti. You better be proud of where you're from. And from that moment on, I never did that again.
It's also interesting because I don't know how many of our listeners might have seen the movie American Gangster with Denzel Washington, but you grew up in that neighborhood when Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes were basically running Harlem. And you actually had some interactions with those guys as well, right?
I did. Playing basketball, those guys, they would just give money to guys that when they were good, they knew which guys were going to make it and all that stuff. So they tried to get close to you. And so I had that happen. I got me a couple $100. I'm not ashamed to say it. It's like I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I was taking it. If you had a good game, you got an extra 100. So, stuff like that happened all the time. But the better you were, the more money you got.
Every athlete has pivotal people in their lives who play roles in their careers. What impact did All Hallows coach John Carey have on you?
Oh my goodness. I call him my other dad. And, I hear a lot of people say that, but this man literally was another father. He spoke to me, he didn't coddle me, but at the same time, he wasn't overbearing. He told me the truth, but the most important thing he told me, was stop using the word can't. Because when I was learning how to play basketball, I literally hated the game. And so he would pass me the ball. My fingers are getting jammed. I'm not used to the game. And so I kept saying, I can't do this. I can't. He grabbed me one day. And you got to remember, this man's like 5'4", and he just grabbed me. Hey, let me tell you something. I don't ever want to use that word again. Okay? Stop saying I can't. That was major for me because I did have a lot of issues with confidence, back then. And so that was something that helped me and it motivated me. Don't say the word can't, don't use that word anymore. And, it was but he was very instrumental in my life. And I keep in touch with him because that's how much he meant to me. And my parents didn't allow a lot of people inside our homes or inside our circle. And he was one of the few to ever have been in our homes, and so it's that was major.
We're speaking with Olden Polynice. If you just tuned in, your outstanding high school career leads you to be an early signee at the University of Virginia. That decision would pay off as a freshman. You helped the UVA Cavaliers to the NCAA Final Four as they won the NCAA Eastern Region as the number 7 seed, defeating the number 10 seed Iona, then the number 2 seed Arkansas, the number 3 seed Syracuse, and the number 4 seed Indiana en route to the Final Four. You guys lose in overtime in the Midwest Region Championship. The University of Houston denying you guys. What is the most memorable part of that run, considering, Samson and the whole thing with that college? All of a sudden you're a freshman and you guys get to the Final Four.
Well, the most memorable thing was getting called out by the coaching staff back then because, again, everybody forgot one major thing. I was brand new to basketball. So when I signed with Virginia, so my senior year, was my second full year of basketball. And so my freshman year is like, I'm still in my infancy. So when I got to Virginia, you know, we had Tom Sheedy, who's an All-American, and, you know, we had all the other players, Rick Carlisle, Othell, guys that are really good. So when I got there, I'm finding out how difficult it is to play college basketball because it's all new to me. And so I kept getting hurt. And they were like, oh, he has no heart. You know, there's no toughness in him. And I was like, no, I'm hurt. But the thing about me is that I never told them I was hurt. I tried to fight through it, you know. And so it wasn't until the George Washington game against All-American Mike Brown where I just stepped up and played even injured. And then that's when all of a sudden they were like, oh, this kid got heart. And the rest is history. But that run we had, I'm not bragging, but if I didn't play the way I did during the tournament run, we never would have made some final.
No question. I totally agree with you. No question there at all. 86-87, you're selected 8th overall by the Chicago Bulls in the draft, but you're traded to the Seattle Supersonics for Scottie Pippen. Take me back to that day, what you recall about it, and then secondly, have you ever wondered what your career would have looked like if the Bulls kept you and you got that opportunity to play with Michael for all those years?
No, I've never thought about it that way. I try not to do the what-if game. But what I remember and what ended up happening was this. So right at the draft, we're sitting there. And you got to remember, I've only worked out for 2 teams. I worked out for New York and I worked out for Seattle. And so I'm saying to myself, well, New York is too far down. I'm probably not going to make it. And Seattle already told me I was coming to Seattle. They're going to pick me. So when Commissioner Stearns said with the 5th pick, I'm literally leaning up, about to get up, because I'm like, that's my team. They've already guaranteed me that. And so he says the name Scott Pippen, and I was like, who the hell is Scott Pippen? That's not me. And so I sit back and look behind me to my agent, and he's like, and I'm saying, I'm mouthing the words, what's going on? He's like, relax, relax, relax. Well, what I found out years later, what happened is this. Chicago wanted Scottie, but they found out Sacramento wanted Scottie as well. So they made the Krause, he mentioned it on The Last Dance. Yeah. So they made the deal the night before. And league rules don't allow you to consummate a trade until after a certain point in time in the draft. And so that's all it was. I was never supposed to go to Chicago, and Scottie was never supposed to go to Seattle at all. It just happened that way. So we ended, technically, we were traded for each other, but, you know, it was done the night before.
15 years in the NBA is a huge accomplishment. The game also changed a lot over those 15 years. The torch was passed as Dr. J retired the year before you broke in. Still had Magic Bird, but your rookie year was also the transition to Michael. What was your recollections playing against that holy trinity of Bird, Magic, and Michael?
Oh, my goodness. You got to remember, my first game was against Magic and Kareem, you know. So I caught Kareem, and I remember him hitting a sky hook on me when I checked in the game in the first quarter, and I was in awe. I was like, oh, my God, he just shot a sky hook on me. I'm literally, like, in the game in awe of this man, because that was, like, one of my heroes. And I was like, oh, my God. And he looked at me like, this kid, he is weird. You know, he's crazy. And then my Bernie Bickerstaff looked at me, get your head in the game. And I'm like, Kareem. I was so in awe of this man. And so it was like, you know, to play against Magic and Kareem the first game, and then you go a week later, you got Bird, McHale, Parrish, Dennis Johnson, and then later on, you know, but I knew Michael already from college. And so we already had our battles, and we were friends in college. So that wasn't as big of a deal as playing against Magic and Bird and Kareem, you know. So it was just amazing, you know, and that's why I always like to tell people the difference, you know, and I'm not knocking this era and these kids that are playing now, and I love watching them play. But in my time, it was like Kareem one night, Parrish one night, Akeem one night, Patrick Ewing the next night. It's like, come on, do I get a break? David Robinson the following night. You know, and then you get, you know, Barkley and Malone, and It was too many great players.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and you even left out. I mean, Zoe also, Alonzo Mourning. Who was?
Alonzo, yeah, there's so many. Dikembe Mutombo. There was players that there were just so many great players. Every night you had to go. And the thing with me, I was the defensive guy. So if a team had a great 7-footer, I guarded him. But like when we played Utah, I had to guard Malone. When we played Philadelphia, I had to guard Barkley. So I had to be able to guard that size as well as the center. So it made for a tough couple of years in the league.
And it's amazing you talked about like when you first got to college, how they questioned your toughness, and then you look over the 15 years playing against all those guys and your durability. Who was the toughest center that you had to, battles with over the course of your career? Who was the absolute guy you looking at the schedule say, oh man, I don't want to play tonight?
Well, I never said that, but the guy that really gave me fits was Akeem Olajuwon, because it was like, how do I defend him? And it wasn't until one of the playoff series I figured his tail. It's a poker term, but I figured his tail. He had a tail, and people didn't know it. And I never shared it with people while during my career. But one of the things I realized with Akeem Olajuwon is the dream shake. Whichever way he started first, that's where he would always turn and shoot.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't until, once I found that out, I still couldn't, you're not stopping this man. But it gave me a slight advantage, with him as opposed to any other player. But he was still a handful. But it made it, somewhat like, oh, my God, I know exactly what he's going to do right now. As soon as he turns, I'm standing there waiting on him. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. He knows my moves. But he was by far. But then when Shaquille came in the league, he was a whole different problem, because his size, I had never experienced that. And so I was like, man, he's got quickness. He's strong. And then when he got real big, like in 98, 99, 2000, oh, Lord.
We're speaking with Olden Polynice. We mentioned all the greats that you played against, but, there's also that group of players that unfortunately, as generations go by, people forget about. If you had to pick like a starting 5 of the guys that got the most out of their talent in your era that might not be on everyone's all-time great list, but were just such a handful to play against, who would that be?
That's a tough question. It really is. I don't know. Because everybody to me was tough, because you don't make the NBA and not be good. I know we had our superstars and all, but they were like, okay, Buck Williams was a handful. Buck Williams doesn't get a lot of credit, but I would rather play Akeem Olajuwon than Buck Williams.
Wow.
One of the things is this. Kevin Willis, another guy, because they were so much like me. I didn't want to play guys that were like me. I just didn't. Dennis Rodman, I didn't want to see at all. Because I'm like, good Lord, he's going to have me running all over the place, man. I can't do this all night. So I never wanted to play against guys that were similar in style to what I did. But Buck Williams was a grown man with grown man strength, and he worked hard. And I was like, oh my goodness. Those were 3 I would, right off the bat, even though we all know Dennis Rodman, but I would definitely put him in that category because he worked harder than any superstar I'd ever seen.
Those are 3 great names for sure. Buck Williams. Wow. I haven't heard that name in years, but it's true. And unfortunately, those are the names that somehow, younger listeners, don't know about, because they're not the ones that, you hear about when you're watching an NBA game in the old stories. But those, unfortunately, are the ones that don't get the credit that they deserve. Over the 15 years, you had a wide range of coaching styles that, were your head coaches. Bernie Bickerstaff, Casey Jones, Mike Schuler, Matt Calvin, Larry Brown, Ron Rothstein, Don Chaney, Paul Westphal, Jerry Sloan, Mike Dunleavy. Which of the coaches did you feel you connected the most with? And when you served as a coach for the ABA's Long Beach Breakers, which former coach's words did you hear coming out of your mouth, like saying, whoa, where did that come from?
Oh, it was the 2, may they rest in peace, the 2 that just passed away, Jerry Sloan and Casey Jones. I patterned everything that I learned after, Casey's compassion and treating you like a man, and Jerry Sloan's is no nonsense, get to work. He treats everybody the same. I don't play favorites. He yelled at, I'll tell you this story. It is the funniest thing. So I get traded to, I signed with Utah from Seattle. So I get there and we practicing and all that stuff. So first preseason game we're playing and we're running a break, and then John Stockton, he stops in the middle of the break and it's like he looks over at Jerry. It's like, what do you want? I'm like, so I walk over to him during the timeout, right? I said, wait a minute, do you ask him what place? He's like, yeah, he's the coach. And I was like, wow. Because it blew my mind that, one, Jerry Sloan had that much respect, but two, as great as John Stockton was, he still deferred to the head coach, on what plays to run. And it just blew me away. And it showed the level of respect that players had for Jerry Sloan. And I'll tell you this other thing. No one was ever late to a practice or to a game in Utah. Which is unheard of.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because you take a look at the era in which you played, and I'm just wondering, myself, is if your career actually started the year after you retired and ran 15 years from that point on, the way you played the game, the way the players controlled who and where teams they end up with, how do you think that 15-year period would have differed from your actual career?
I think personally I would have been okay because I was a team guy, even to a detriment. I was always about, my teammates, I'm rooting them on no matter what. But I don't know about the rules. I would have had to adapt to the rules. Like I used to call our era, wrestling with a basketball, so that's the only thing. But it's just having to adapt to the style of play. That would be the hardest thing for me because, again, a lot of the fouls that we had were normal fouls, and today you get 2-3 game suspensions for. And so that would have been the hardest thing for me to adapt to.
And how do you think you'd be able to adapt when you get maybe 3 or 4 steps holding the ball to the basket?
Oh my goodness! Especially with my hook. Yeah, I would have performed a little bit better.
So, but what do you make of players looking to win championships and looking to see what the best destination is for them and forcing teams to trade them? Could you ever imagine that back in your playing day?
No, not at all. And that's one, again, I don't want to criticize these young guys, but that's the one I don't like because everybody, teaming together, it's like, come on, play the game, work hard on your game, and whatever happens, happens. Now, if everybody decides to go play with their friends and buddies, it's like, what's left? There's no more competition. And so to me, that's the only thing that I don't agree with because I see a lot of these players taking the shortcut. And a perfect example is this, okay? Scottie Pippen or whomever, right? Karl Malone, John Stockton. I can name Reggie Miller. I can name every player in the 80s, 90s. It's like they became great players, So they had to work hard at their game. They had to work on their skill. They became Hall of Famers. People think they woke up one day and were great. No, they had to develop into great players. And so when those teams, and the last team that I've seen do it was the Golden State Warriors. Clay, Steph, and Draymond. You got to remember, Draymond's a second-round pick. And I always tell this story. If Draymond goes to any other team in the NBA, he does not make the NBA. He does not last. So the Warriors had to have enough confidence and foresight to say, hey, this guy's going to be good. But those guys, they worked hard to become great. So I think people see the Warriors now and they think, oh, it was done so easily. And it's not. These guys work hard. And that's what I'm trying to get a lot of these young players to understand. You got to put the work and effort in. It's not going to be a shortcut to championships. There's no shortcut.
And even with those three great players, it also takes a great coach to be able to have them mesh, because sometimes you can have those players that work hard and have great talent, and if the coach doesn't put them in an area to succeed, it's a mess. You mentioned those, and we've talked about the Warriors for so many years on this program. Today's game, who is the one player that you just find joy in watching?
That I enjoy watching?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I love Kevin Durant. I love Clay. I'm waiting for him to get back. He may be my favorite one to watch play now. Him and Steph. I mean, I love the Warriors system. It's like an upgraded version of the San Antonio Spurs, very unselfish. But, I love Kevin Durant. I love Clay. I love Steph. I love people that play hard and give it their all, but yet it's still within the confines of teamwork. And so, I got to give LeBron his respect. What he's done over the years is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I mean, I've never seen anybody get better as they get older in basketball. That's like almost unheard of. It's unheard of.
That was a really nice correlation you made there between the Robinson era, Spurs and Steph and his Warriors. I like that. That's really that's dead on actually too. Olden, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, where can people keep up with all the great charity work you do and what you're up to on social media? Where can people follow you?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram, and on Instagram it's Olden Polynice, and on Twitter is Olden Polynice 1. So everything else is Olden Polynice except for Twitter, and it's Olden Polynice 1 because somebody took my name.
But M1, not the 0. I mean, come on.
I didn't want to do the 0. No? I just said 1. I don't know. I don't even know why I did. I was new to this whole thing. I still don't know how I even came up with that. I should have just put the real Olden Polynice or something like that. But I'm like, whatever.
All right, Olden. Thanks so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Be good, stay healthy, and enjoy the football, enjoy the basketball for the rest of the night.
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it. Olden Polynice, 15-year NBA veteran. While we were doing that interview, Tom Brady's going to be the first quarterback to play a home game in the Super Bowl. Incredible finish. What's even more incredible is the fact that within seconds there was a commercial for Tampa Bay, swag for being the champions. And then right after that, you got to just say, like, wow, you had the insurance commercial with Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes sitting together. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk a little more basketball with Chaim Tauber and AJ Carter, so keep it tuned right here.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman with you this Sunday evening, this Sunday Championship Sunday with Tom Brady. Listen, Jet fans, we hated him, but listen, you got to give the guy his due. Goes to another team in his first year, and he brings them a championship. NFC Championship, going to the Super Bowl, going to be the quarterback in his hometown. Incredible story. I feel for Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron Rodgers as a player. But we'll talk more football in a little while. Right now, we're just waiting on Chaim and AJ. They'll be with us in a second, hopefully. And no AJ. Do we have AJ? All right, so we'll talk with AJ with basketball. We couldn't get in touch with Chaim. He's probably watching the end, or maybe he's already ordering his NFC Championship T-shirts, because they've been selling them 3 commercials already since this game ended. It's unbelievable. So AJ, we have no Chaim for some reason tonight, so you and I can talk a little bit basketball. The big three, they finally get their first win. The Miami roster was not whole, but they were able to squeeze out a win. Oh, I think we're going to get Chaim, actually. He's calling in, so hold on. We'll join Chaim together. And Chaim, you there? Chaim, are you there? I think we're having issues.
I'm here, Mark.
Oh.
Are you trying to do a Chaim in?
I think we're having trouble with Chaim's phone for some reason. Chaim, can you hear us? Oh, there you go. Chaim,
There we go. Good.
All right.
Everybody's here.
All right. So what we were just talking about, Chaim, at the top was the big three finally got their first win with the Nets over a Miami roster that really wasn't whole due to the injuries and such. Able to squeeze it out, but the big three in that final quarter scored all 32 of the Nets points. What did you see out of the big three in their first final win together?
I mean, I saw what everybody's been looking for. I saw dynamic potential. I saw three of the best ISO scorers, ISO players, ball handlers in the league going ahead, doing their thing. I saw guys who were willing to distribute, who didn't need the spotlight the entire time. I mean, I also saw a team that doesn't have a ton of depth, that's Dinwiddie down, and leaning as heavily on those three guys they have to. They're a team that could be dynamic. It's just a matter of what's the locker room going to look like? How is this going to play out over the long haul? To see it happening this early is encouraging because the other big threes in the past, Miami, the most recent iteration, they got off to slow starts. They struggled. The super teams usually do. So to see Kyrie, Durant, and James Harden account for pretty much all the scoring at the end where they really needed it, it was big. It's a nice momentum shift. It's something that if they can keep it rolling for the next game, I'll be more impressed. But it's certainly tantalizing.
The warning sign's still up. It's one thing to say that the big three scored all the points. That's what they're expected to do. But the real problem in the previous games, especially the Cleveland ones, nobody's playing defense. So if they're fighting over who's going to get their shots in the ball, what's going to happen to turn around and say, hey, we have to win some games by playing defense every now and then?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a real problem for this team. Kyrie Irving is not somebody who's known for his defensive ability. James Harden is somebody who spent his entire career being mocked for it and ending up on Shaq and a fool. You took away the rim presence in Jarrett Allen, so you're now asking DeAndre Jordan to play more minutes to the rim than he's had to in a long time. There's not much in terms of rim protection. There's not much in terms of dedicated perimeter defenders. This is a team that's going to rely on outscoring you. And I think ultimately that's going to be the identity and the makeup of this team. This is not a team that's going to be able to hold you. It's almost a funny contrast in terms of what you have in the two New York teams. But the Nets are going to play shootouts and just be like, hey, our guns are bigger than yours. And that's ultimately what's going to have to come down to for them because they're not a team that's built to get tough stops late.
It's interesting you said that's the difference between the two New York teams. You take a look at what Thibodeau has been able to do with the Knicks. Granted, it's early on, but why have they bought in where other coaches have tried? I mean, listen, it's a new group, granted, but Thibodeau has them all in, and they're playing great defense, and they're kind of fun to watch. Why have the Knicks been somewhat successful? I mean, we're using a yardstick, compared to prior Knicks teams, which is not a very high bar to set. But why have they been so successful and fun to watch, for that matter?
Well, I mean, you said it. It's a matter of buying into Coach Thibodeau's philosophy, to his identity. And this is a new roster. This is a roster that is so unbelievably young in terms of veteran presence and carryover. It's pretty much Alfred Payton. I guess Julius Randle's a veteran presence at this point. There's not much in terms of age. It's a really young roster. It's a roster of guys that are, again, playing for their next contract, which is something you saw last year, just without the real, without any continuity from the front office, which is also entirely new. I can't put it all on Coach Thibodeau because this is a brand new front office in general. And players understand they're playing for their contract. They're playing for their roster spot in the coming years in the rebuilding of this franchise. And Coach Thibodeau is somebody who's got the resume and the track record both in Chicago and as a member of the 90s Knicks coaching staff under Van Gundy. So he's already beloved. He's probably the biggest marquee guy. I mean, Julius Randle turned himself into something, but he was the biggest name in the Knicks offseason. He was the biggest name in the Garden. It was Tom Thibodeau. So they're buying in.
If you take a look at the team, Chaim, and defense is one thing. They're playing great defense and actually playing defense. But if you look at their offense, they've given up goodbye the isolation game. It's a much more interesting offense to watch because they're moving the ball around. Everybody's moving the ball around. It's not give the ball to somebody and clear them out. You know who does what. that quickly has the shot, goes into the lane, does the floater. You look at some of the kickouts, but watch them move the ball in a way that they haven't in at least since before they got Carmelo Anthony. That's the longest since they played this type of move the ball around, find the open man offense.
We almost did it. We almost got through a basketball report without mentioning Carmelo Anthony. It was close. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, and you know what? Just wait till they get a point guard. It's going to look so much better. This is a team that and I'm not going to say they're close, they're not, but they're a team that's trending in the right direction, and they're moving the ball without a true point guard, without a true second scorer to Julius Randle. Those kickouts are coming out primarily off of Julius Randle double teams. He is playing a little post ISO game, and when the double comes, he's doing a really good job of kicking it out and finding the open guy. If there's a ball handler to run this offense, to be able to find Kevin Knox in the corner to get quickly his shot, they can create it. This is a team that can start putting up much better offensive numbers than they have been because the offense has been lacking.
Biggest surprise for you thus far? I know the season, we're actually quarter way through. What team has been the biggest surprise for you?
Which team has been the biggest surprise? There are definitely a couple of underachievers. There are some teams that, and there are some teams that you just, coming into the season, you didn't know where they would be. For me, the team, I don't know if it's fair to call them the biggest surprise, but I guess maybe the most pleasant revelation has been the way the Los Angeles Clippers have been playing. The way that year ended, the way the disharmonious firing, or the way the front office ended up going. This was a team that I expected to start trending downwards and to start selling off pieces. And the way they bounced back in the early part of this season is one that was a major storyline for me. And honestly, they look like the second best team in the West, and the second best team in LA. But they're a much better team than I expected they would be. And they have been a pleasant surprise for me thus far. They're the team that stands out.
To me, looking out there, looking ahead, is not what team is surprised, what team has been a disappointment, but what's going on with COVID. And you take a look, I wonder how much longer it's going to be because it really affects. They need more games canceled. Look at Memphis. Teams are getting games. How long is this going to be before they actually have to stop to the season? That, to me, is the biggest concern going forward for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Given the climate, it's going to be a marathon. It's going to be a matter. It's a matter of attrition. And there were teams that, last year you had the opt-in, opt-out thing. So it was decided pretty early in terms of, you didn't have too many people kicked out of the bubble. You didn't have too much issues once the bubble's directed. This year it's bubble-free. And with that's going to come problems. You saw in the NFL, they had teams playing without quarterbacks, without wide receivers at all. You had baseball, they've had a whole kinds of issues, weeks worth of issues with certain teams and franchises. Is the NBA going to be able to withstand this without a bubble? I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if at some point they have to recalibrate and decide that the bubble's the way to go. But yeah, there's no question about it. Given the current climate, vaccine or no, COVID is going to be a major factor in deciding the champion in 2021, and it is a battle of attrition.
All right, Chaim, thanks so much. Chaim Tauber, heard here each and every week on Sports Talk New York. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk AJ's favorite sport, hockey, so keep it tuned right here.
If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. This is actually the first show that you could actually hear on the new iPhone app. It's a 365 Sportscast app. It's available in the iTunes App Store. Download it. Take us with you wherever you go. It's pretty neat. We're kind of thrilled about it, kind of happy that no matter where you go, you can take us with you. It's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with the rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future. handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. And if you were getting your players, I guess you would have to have a switch of uniform to Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois, who big trade. I am shocked that Laine got traded. He's a really, really good player. And granted, you have to give up quality to get quality, but you're trading a fairly young player who's really had success in the league for a guy who, listen, I know Torts is tough. This player could be a head case or it could just be something that he did that got him in the doghouse with Torts. But Torts has usually been kind of right with players that, have this ability and never fulfill that ability. So walk us through the trade, what you think, Russ.
Sure. First part is Laine was definitely on the block for a while because there was just a divide in the Winnipeg locker room. He could be kind of a headstrong kid, and he never really played the kind of hockey that Maurice wanted him to play. So that was an issue, and they weren't going to pay him beyond his current contract. That seemed pretty obvious because they don't really pay anybody that much money. So that was a part of it. Now, Pierre-Luc Dubois, he was a point-a-game player in the playoffs, and he is playing first-line center, and he is matching up against the best, and he's done a really good job. And at 23 years old, there's a lot of future there. I think Tortorella accelerated this for whatever his reasons are, but he didn't need to come out preseason and start talking about it on the radio and start saying he's going to talk about it as much as he wants. That's fine. But they're going to regret that trade because Winnipeg's now strung up the middle. They already have the best goalie in the league. This actually makes Winnipeg better in the short term. Now, if Laine were to re-sign in Columbus, then I would say they won the trade because I like Jack Roslovic a lot as well. And I felt like he got rushed to the NHL. And so maybe this year, maybe it's going to be next year, that's going to be his really good year. But that's another center that they picked up in Columbus. He's a local kid. He played well in college there. So there's something there, too, with Roslovic. So it'll be interesting. And that third-round pick, forget it. It's like a 2022. You don't worry about that. But, end of the day, it is good talent for good talent. But I think Winnipeg wins in the short term, and we'll see about Columbus winning in the long term. Because, again, are they going to give a big offer sometime to Patrick Laine, or are they going to let him walk like Panarin, or trade him again? Like, it's what they do with their players. Will Seth Jones be there in a year? I don't know.
It's also interesting. Why do you think Torts targeted? Listen, I mean, going back to Brandon Dubinsky's days here, he kind of did that to Dubinsky when Dubinsky held out. He said,
and Gaborik.
And Gaborik as well. Why do you think this was the player he targeted?
I don't know. I'm sure there is something that went on that we don't know about. So I'm not quite sure, but he was his best performer in the playoffs. So, but again, a lot of those things don't matter to Torts. I said the other day, Torts would rather have a guy at times. I'd rather have a guy like Stu Bickle that nobody has any expectations for, and he turns him into a player and gets some production, than a guy who he feels like isn't playing Torts hockey and is supposed to be really good and then, doesn't do it. He would rather have the Stu Bickle. And that's why I never understood about Torts. Gaborik, he torched Gaborik, and Gaborik did well after the Rangers. So, again, he's not always right on this either.
That is true. So we had all this hype coming in with the two Russian young goalies here in New York, and the oldest of all the Russian goalies seems to be the guy who's got off to an unbelievable start. What have you seen about Varlamov's game thus far? 142 minutes of shutout hockey. I'm wondering, it goes back to years ago when Martin Brodeur had all those, minutes of not giving up goals. Is it the system? Because you take a look at what the Islanders have done with their goaltenders. Go back to Greiss. Every single goaltender they've brought in has been the best they've ever been in their careers. Is it the system, or are they just picking these goalies up at the right time?
No, it's a little bit of both the system and the goalie. I mean, I covered Varlamov when he first came up in the AHL before he hit the NHL with the Capitals. And he was really good there. Then with the Avs, they weren't so good. He wasn't so good. And then you fast forward to the Islanders, and if he does have an semblance of defense in front of him, he can be a heck of a goalie. And that's why I kept telling people, listen, Trotz likes Varlamov. He trusts him. He knows him from Washington. Even if you believe Sorokin's the better goalie, it might take until game 15, 16, 17 for Sorokin to even win the job, if that's even possible. And I kept trying to tell people, that's why people were saying, like, hey, Sorokin could win the Calder. I'm like, I don't think he's going to play enough. I really do think that Trotz likes Varlamov, but he has to play Sorokin because otherwise he'll want to leave. So he'll balance it the best way he can. But Varlamov's the number one, and I'm not sure it's going to change.
All right, Russ, appreciate it. It was weird this afternoon seeing, Mark Stahl in a Red Wings jersey.
Yeah.
And I totally even forgot Franz Nielsen. It's amazing that he's had this second career with the Red Wings.
That's one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
but anyhow.
Exactly. All right, Russ, we'll speak to you next week.
Take
Russ
care,
Cohn
guys.
here each and every week with the NHL Report, sponsored by Soho Table Hockey. Quick break, and then we're going to break down what was just an epic football game. If Jay Retcher has a voice left, we'll see. He's been on the Tampa Bay Buccaneer boat all season long. So take a quick break. On the other side, we'll bring in Jay.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, square.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening, Championship Sunday. And it's now time for the Capco NFL report with probably a very excited Jay Retcher. Even though it's winter, spring will be here before you know it. Now's the time to get your windows and doors ready to let the fresh air in, bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. Clearview retractable screen system comes with standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. Jay, unbelievable. Listen, I know how excited you were when Tom Brady took his talents to Tampa Bay. You talked about the possibility of having a quarterback home, in a home game for the Super Bowl. And here it is. What did you see out of what was an epic game today? What did you see out of Brady and the Bucs? Right. And you know what? I don't even think that was the turning point in the game. I think the turning point of the game came at the halftime when, Green Bay had the ball and it didn't seem like they had any sense of urgency. And then, Rodgers throws the pick at the 50. Then, you get them coming down the field and it was a 4th down and it looked like, that the Buccaneers were going to put the kicking team out on the field. And then they called the timeout. Brady comes out and then throws a touchdown. That to me was the game right there. If that touchdown's off the board and Green Bay plays the way they played in the second half, you're not having that home field game as a Super Bowl. Yep. And the coverage, the Green Bay's coverage, you know what? Listen, back in the day, I think that one of their their secondary coaches, Ed Donatel, got fired after an egregious, call on the defense. That was an awful. I mean, why were they playing? They gave him 10 yards. It was brutal. Yeah. Absolutely. We have 2 seconds before we have to let you go. Who's going to be their opponent in the Super Bowl? Me too. We will break it down next week with you, Jay. Appreciate it, Jay Retcher. We're going to keep AJ on the phone with us right now because it's going to be time for his Sunday papers. AJ, got a little treat for you. Hold on. All right, AJ, what do you got for us? Go ahead. Wait. Hold on. AJ, hold on. I want everyone to, let's go back. AJ said the dog sits, S-I-T-S. Okay. Just want to make that clear. All right. All right, awesome. AJ is always here, my co-host. He's socially distanced, and he's also training for the masked dancer. You can vote on which of the masked dancers AJ will be. Keep it tuned right here because Brett Topel and BT Talks Baseball up right after us. And then after that, we have Howie Carpin and Carpin's Corner and Rich Catino's Mets Clubhouse Confidential. So keep it tuned right here on your iPhone app, your Android app, your Alexa app, your desktop, wherever you get it. We love that you're going to be part of this great ride that we're looking forward to. See everyone next week. We'll break down the Super Bowl. So have a great week, everybody.